Welcome to the IREL podcast. Are you sick and tired of real estate gurus pitching their next free construction deal only to find out years later they were completely wrong? Worried the next overseas conference you spend thousands to attend will only be used to sell overpriced lots in deserted developments? Join thousands of other international real estate seekers who are looking for their place in paradise without the sales pitch. Straight from your host, Taylor White.
Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 22 of the IREL podcast. I'm your host, Taylor White. I am really excited to share some on-the-ground insights when I sit down and speak with Carlo Habet from 4Realty in Belize City, Belize. And as always, we'll get the true story on the local real estate scene and have you coming away wanting to investigate its property market further or cross it off your shortlist entirely and continue listening. Right now from Carlo, you will learn why he has set up shop in the commercial hub of Belize instead of the more well-known expat hotspots such as the Cayo and Placenica. Gives us the current, up-to-the-minute inside take on where prices are today and gives us his perspective on where he sees it heading within the near future. Exposes up-and-coming hotspots in well-known downtown Belize City and breaks down which exact streets are poised for huge upside potential. Provides listeners with 3 tremendous buying opportunities today, including raw land, an apartment building, and a large furnished turnkey home. Shows why he sets himself apart from the usual expat real estate hawker and explains why his passion is finding amazing deals for buyers and much more. And don't forget, if you're listening to this podcast and want to grab Carlo's contact details, links on buying or selling Belize City real estate, or any other show notes, head on over to irelpodcast.com/22. Sip on a local whiskey and coconut water, pull out a map and a guidebook, and enjoy listening to this up-and-coming commercial hub. In case you can't tell, I'm excited. Let's get Carlo on the phone. Carlo, what is going on, buddy? It's Taylor White. I'm excited to have you on the podcast today, straight from Belize City, Belize. So we can get to know you personally. Tell us more about yourself and where your stomping grounds were before you ended up in Belize City.
Hi, Taylor. Great to be on the show. Definitely my pleasure. Thanks for having me. So a bit about me. I've been a realtor here in Belize since 2008. And, I've seen the market go through a lot of changes. It's definitely an exciting time to be a buyer in the Belizean market. I'm actually born and raised Belizean, so outside of my college education in the U.S., Belize has always been my stomping ground, so to speak.
Awesome, Carlo. I love speaking with born and raised. And so we can get a better idea of you professionally. Give us your brief resume leading up to 4Realty.
Sure. Well, I did most of my education here in Belize, as I mentioned, up until college, when I went to St. Louis, Missouri, to get my bachelor's in business administration with a concentration in entrepreneurship. That was at St. Louis University. I then did some work at my family business, which is Brothers Habet, where I'm actually still a director and manager. We do building supplies, wholesaling, and retailing, and we're a leader in the country. After about a year being here, we embarked on a couple of development projects, and I went to Champions School of Real Estate in Texas, came back and joined up with the Belize National Association of Realtors, and ended up specializing in lots and land, the commercial investment grade. And that's about when, I founded 4Realty. I'm the broker and owner of a couple. And, I also stay busy in various organizations such as the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry and our newly merged Belize Real Estate Association.
Hey, Carlo, I'm curious. Can you kind of briefly explain what it takes to be a Belize realtor or kind of explain your new Belize Real Estate Association?
Sure. Well, unlike a lot of more developed markets, we don't have the most regulation, unfortunately, and that's kind of what we're working towards right now, and that's kind of why we recently merged the two associations into this newly found Belize Real Estate Association. So really for that, I joined up with the National Association of Realtors branch down here because really I thought it was a big advantage, and realtors have a very strict code of conduct. And
right.
So that was my advantage, I think, competitively against other agents in the area, that I was actually a realtor. So at the moment now we're actually working on all that stuff, licensing, and so I think really going forward it's going to be a good time, for customers coming in, that they can actually trust in whoever they're getting, regardless if it's a realtor or just a real estate agent. They're finally going to be regulations and licensing procedures, and so I think that's good for the consumer.
That's fantastic. Off the top of your head, do you have to be a Belizean citizen to be a realtor, or can expats come to Belize to be realtors?
Yeah, no, they definitely can. And actually, that is something that they have been doing. And so you actually find that a lot of expats actually do get a very good market, of their friends and so forth that they had, in the U.S. And then, U.S. citizens especially tend to, trust other U.S. citizens that come down. And
right.
So they actually make a good living for themselves.
Right. Awesome, Carlo. Well, listeners and I are always fascinated to learn about which countries people have considered and why. Now, let's delve deeper into Belize as a whole, and then why you chose Belize City in particular versus other popular Belize locations like the Cayo and San Pedro.
Sure. Well, Belize is a country. It's truly a fascinating place. It has so much untapped potential. It's really hard to describe without fully understanding the place and our history. Firstly, our geographic location, I'll argue, is quite possibly the most strategic in the world. We have beautiful weather all year round, diverse terrain, wildlife, natural sources, and let's not forget easy access to Central, South, North America, and the Caribbean. We have the largest barrier reef in this hemisphere, the only jaguar reserve, the highest concentration of Maya ruins in the region, and truly some of the richest virgin soil in the world, bar none. It might sound crazy, but just about everything is better here, and we export our prized produce to the U.S. and U.K., where they are premium built. Now, Belize City in particular has always been my home. And while the economy has been a bit depressed for the last few years, it's poised for a rebound. And tourism is already actually bouncing back. And the hub actually is in Belize City. So that's one thing that I like Belize City for. It's the commercial capital, period. And this is where the big dogs play. And you can find some of the best deals in the city right now, in the whole country essentially.
Hey, Carlo, I'm curious. If we're looking at a map of Belize, can you better explain where Belize City is located?
Yeah, Belize City is sort of like, I guess you'd say like around the middle if you go from north to south, and it kind of like juts out like a little nose. It's really small, but a lot of Belize City is sort of like New Orleans in a sense that we're technically below sea level, and so a lot of Belize City was actually developed, filled in and developed by contractors and whatnot. So it's a great place, but I think that it's largely built. It's right there. It's kind of like a little nub if you're looking at it.
So it's right on the coast, and then when people fly into Belize, they fly into Belize City for the most part, right?
Yeah. Belize City currently has the only international airport. I believe we're working on another one down south by Placencia, which is also, as you may know, a very popular tourist destination.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Carlo, we have gotten to know you both personally and professionally, reasons why you chose Belize and why Belize City speaks to you. But get ready, because now it's time for us to pick your brain on the local real estate scene. And to get the juices flowing, we're going to do a quick round of what I like to call the real estate hot seat. We'll ask you 5 rapid-fire questions, and you give me an answer in 15 seconds or less each. Carlo, are you ready for the Belize City hot seat?
Sure, let's go.
All right. What currency is real estate priced in?
Well, you can pick up a real estate in either U.S. or Belize dollars, and we're pegged 2 to 1. So it's 2 Belize to 1 U.S., so you get more bang for your buck in general.
Is owning property as a foreigner legal?
Yeah, it's not only legal, it's incredibly easy. There are really no requisites except money.
That's important.
It's easy, yeah, it's important.
Can property be titled?
Yes, totally. It can be titled. They also do lease from the government, but I typically deal in only freehold title land.
Can money flow in and out of Belize easily, or are there currency restrictions?
Well, there are no restrictions per se, but there are regulations. And so sometimes there's a bit of red tape and bureaucracy, but it still flows. I would just recommend to get a good lawyer.
And as listeners know, Carlo, my number one question, what is your favorite local drink?
Okay, it'd probably be rum and coke. I think that's what we produce great rum, by the way. But lately, I've been in sort of like a whiskey and coconut water phase. I love whiskey, and coconut water is probably the best mixer for it, bar none.
So, Carlo, talk to me. Do you guys make your own rum and whiskey there?
We don't make our own whiskey, but we do make our own rum, and the rum is kind of our flagship. We actually have a few award-winning rums, like One Barrel. We have Old Master, which is really good as well. So we definitely do have great rum.
Do you by chance know if your local rum is sold in like the States or Canada or some other countries?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think they tend to be more in like the southern states, like, you're looking at Florida, Louisiana.
Right.
Yeah, like that, essentially. I think Texas has as well.
Sounds good, buddy. Okay, Carlo, you can now relax, but just a little bit, as you were off the Belize City hot seat. But it's time to zero in on the local real estate scene. give us your brief synopsis on the Belize City real estate market over the last few years, where it is today, and then where you see it heading for the next few years.
Okay, well, I typically use 2008 as a marker. I'm not sure if it's a coincidence, but I came in the market just as it was starting to downward spiral, so to speak. So bad timing, you may say, but these things also bring opportunities. That's how I look at it. So we had a very robust market before then, probably the best it's ever been, and prices were definitely peaking. But like a lot of things around 2008, the bubble burst, so to speak, and reality caught up. So now it's a buyer's market, and investors are having a great time acquiring property that will, again, see some great growth, that are two lifters as we bounce back fully and start, truly growing again. Not just the real estate market, but the economy at large, which, really dictates everything else. So what cements this for me is the buy-in from the government and private sector to restore Belize City, to its former glory and surpass it. So we're seeing lots of public works and development going on. I see now as a great time, really, to get in at the bottom floor, as they say. Prices have come down 15 to almost 40% in some cases across the board, and negotiation is still possible in most instances. So this is a place to invest in, but the prices won't last much longer, I don't think.
So, Carlo, you got in 2008, and we're now in 2014. How do you think the prices have fared since 2008? I see you said something around 15 to 40%. Do you think they've come down considerably and they started to climb back up, or where do you think that stands today?
They still haven't started climbing. I mean, I think you saw prices hold for a year or two after 2008, but the offers are coming in a lot lower. And then I think around 2009, 2010, people realized, if I want to sell this thing, I kind of have to lower my price officially, to get more eyes on it. And so that's what I recommend typically too, is that you kind of just come in a little bit under, what the valuation price would be. And so that's typically now the actual prices are coming down, even before, the offers are coming in. And the offers still come in, lower. So again, it's a pretty good time. The property that's on the market right now, typically there's negotiation involved, and so I typically encourage most people to make an offer because you really would never know unless you start the process,
So I'm curious, if people make an aggressive offer, is that something that's frowned upon by sellers in Belize, or is that something where they might counter their offer back?
It does depend on the seller, but typically I try to get them to at least counter, Sometimes they'll turn it down flat, but generally I think it pays to be aggressive because, again, you never know. Some people have a certain budget and they don't want to stretch it, and so I say, well, just let's make an offer. You know what I mean? You may be surprised. So let's test it. Let's test it out, and that's what I encourage people to just test it out because the worst that'll happen is they'll say no. The best will happen is that they'll counter, and again, you start the process, and then you can go from there.
Exactly. I agree completely. Okay, Carlo, you have us sold on Belize as a country, Belize City as a location, and then its real estate outlook within the near future. Of course, you don't have a crystal ball. I sure as heck don't. No one does. But that is why I think it's so vitally important to get on-the-ground insight from local real estate professionals. And yes, Carlo, I just used the words local and on-the-ground in the same sentence to drive home a very important fact. Carlo, you are not some newsletter writer who might spend a few days in the Cayo and then send out emails with hot buys calling yourself an international real estate guru. You are there in the trenches on a daily basis, dealing with local buyers, sellers, agents, lawyers, and every facet of the real estate business. Carlo, break this down even further for us. Pretend you are Google Maps or Google Street View. What streets, neighborhoods, or parts of the city are we talking about in Belize City?
Yeah, well, firstly, you're exactly right, Taylor, and that is the service I provide, local expert on the ground. So right now, Belize is seeing continued development on the Philip Golson Highway. So prices tend to be rather stable on that side. Everything from residential neighborhoods to commercial properties, they keep selling and they continue to develop. So that's always a foolproof investment. You have neighborhoods like Buttonwood Bay, Bella Vista, and now Belama are all still great buys for families and first-time homeowners. These are areas where demand truly outstrips supply. You also have old neighborhoods such as Kings Park. They tend to have good product for previously unheard of pricing, so you want to look there as well. One of my personal favorites is the George Price Highway. And not only because I live there, but with a new road about to be built connecting the Philip Golson with the Price Highway, it's finally poised for the kind of growth that I always knew was possible. And prices are already starting to climb a little bit as, speculators capitalize on what are very good prices. So land is typically around a quarter of what it would cost on the Philip Golson Highway. And, I think that will soon change as new residential neighborhoods and commercial enterprise start popping up. It's also a vital road as it leads to our capital in Cayo and the whole of down south, really. So why it hasn't already boomed is truly beyond me, but it's about to happen. Aside from that, commercially, we have Kone Drive, which is establishing itself rapidly as a new business district. And then you have the old district downtown on Albert Street and Regent Streets, which right now are finally kind of bouncing back, and there's big plans for that area in general. So you can find good deals down there, and I think you'll see next couple of years development happening, and it'll pay off for you.
Well, Carlo, I've flown into Belize City, but I spent only a couple of weeks in the Cayo. Can you better explain how big Belize City is, approximately?
Belize City, I think by international standards, it's not a big city. And I think really Belize City got its billing way back when the population threshold for a city was a lot lower. That's kind of funny, actually. But I think right now, the last estimate, I think officially put it at around 85,000 people for the city. And the city is probably not more than like a 10-mile radius, to be quite honest with you.
Okay, cool. And that's the capital, right?
Not really, but it's the commercial capital. The capital was moved from Belize City some years ago after a hurricane to Belmopan, which is in Cayo. And that city is essentially a government city in a sense. It's kind of like a D.C.
Right.
And it's also like a college town. So you have a very mobile population, but it's actually a pretty stable economy over there, and it's actually a really good place to like actually develop and do rentals. It's huge on that.
Right. Well, Carlo, now that we have specific locations in mind, what types of properties do you recommend? And first, let me give you a few brief examples of what I mean. Are we talking about buying pre-construction units for capital appreciation that we later flip? Are we talking about buying completed apartments, houses, or office spaces to generate rental income? Or are we talking about buying land to either sell as is or subdivide into smaller tracts? Carlo, give us a better idea of what you are talking about today.
Okay, well, I'm talking more specifically about homes and office spaces to generate rental income or flip, as well as large tracts of land to subdivide or even just flip again. So some require work, which is good because you can get a great deal at the bottom end, and some are ready to just take over and generate income. So there is some real potential as well in big tracts that can be subdivided and sold as like gated communities and stuff like that.
So if you're talking a little bit bigger tracts of land that can be subdivided, would that be in Belize City or is that just outside of Belize City?
It would be within the city limits, but it's outside what is currently like the urban environment. So it would be more like along the highway, but still within the limits of the city.
Oh, okay. Nice. Okay, Carlo. Now I'm going to hit you up with a two-part question that I know everyone wants to know, and you have to give us a general range. So we have some price points in mind. Here they are. Part one, what would be the price range of what we are talking about? Maybe give us a starting price point at the low end to a final price point at the high end. And Carlo, just to clarify, I'm talking about total purchase price.
Sure. For good locations that need work, you can find some great fixer-uppers at the bottom end, as low as $50,000 to $75,000 US. But my advice would be to kind of go into the $200 US price range and above for some real winners, in like large tracts of land and larger buildings with commercial potential that you can rent. You can also find some great deals in seafront acreages as low as $250,000 US. At the real high end of around $500 US, you're looking at huge tracts where you can get like hundreds of lots or commercial space needing a bit of work that you can generate some, very healthy income, of at least $10,000 US per month and above.
And then, Carlo, I'm going to transition to a part two. I know it's tough, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What would be the cost per meter? Again, a starting price point at the low end, final price point at the high end. And Carlo, just for a general range.
Sure. I hope you don't mind if I talk in like square feet.
I would love it, actually. Go for it.
Okay. Well, great. We use a standard system, and I know it's going out of style around the world apparently, but we still use it. So, but many times you can pick up places at the high end, around $75 to $150 per square foot. We're talking about buildings, some, as low as $25 per square foot at the bottom end for fixer-uppers. When talking about land, you can find some great deals on island properties for as little as, $10,000 per acre for parcels with big acreages, and agricultural land on the mainland for around $5,000 per acre for large tracts. The rule is, though, that the bigger the acreage, the lower the price per acre. So if you're looking at acreages bigger than 1,000 acres, you can really find some good deals at $1,000 to $2,000 per acre. So for prime commercial land in the city, the low end would be around $10 per square foot, and the high end around $40 per square foot. And hope that wasn't too confusing. No, and I'm curious, Carlo, what's the type of clientele that you normally deal with? Is it local buyers? Is it expats? That kind of thing? Yeah, I deal a lot with local buyers, and I have essentially two classes that I deal with on a regular basis, and it's either, local investors, who are well established, and understand that it's a buyer's market and, are looking for good deals. That's one. That's the main one, actually. And then two would be like first-time homeowners, like a new family, young couples, stuff like that. They get a good job, and now they want to finally stop renting and they want to move into a nice house. And so they typically get loans. The investors typically have cash, which is, usually great, and it's usually a fast sale.
Well, Carlo, you obviously know what you're talking about. It's clear. Do you normally deal as a buyer's agent, as a seller agent, or kind of both?
Yeah, kind of both. In Belize, a lot of times you have to do both. I prefer, in a sense, to work as a buyer's agent, mainly because, again, you're talking like, local on the ground. This is what I do. I pride myself on my knowledge base, my connections. And so, really, I like to pride myself on working as a buyer's agent. At the same time, you can't survive on that alone, and so I actually do have a lot of listings as well. So as a listing agent, I do pretty well, and sometimes, you work both sides of the deal, which around here, it's not like in the U.S. where it's, in the U.S., I guess it's frowned upon. You can't do it at all. Around here, I typically just assign another agent to work with one of the parties just to make it a little more palatable to people who are used to that other, the other side.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, Carlo, this is a question I like to call, what would sister do? My sister calls you up, says she has X amount of dollars to spend. You can't let my sister down, Carlo. Share with us 3 specific examples you would show her and explain why these make sense.
Sure. Some of my better deals are raw land, and I have some great ones to share with you. This one in particular, this is a beautiful 7-acre tract, and it's lagoon front. It comes complete with an already dug canal, so they already started developing it. Half of it is fully filled and cleared, while the other side requires some clearing and filling. It comes with an already drafted subdivision plan that really just needs to be submitted for approval, and this can yield 21 premium canal front lots and 2 extra large lagoon front lots. At $225 US, it's really priced to sell, and possibly the best deal I have in land at the moment. Now, to mix things up a little bit, I have this other unit, which is an apartment building downtown in the Regent Street area, and I mentioned that earlier. Now, this side of town is the quieter side of the business district, and it's only one street away from the sea, which is really nice, affording you a really nice view, the Caribbean Sea, and actually sort of like the coastline too. So some work on the rooftop and verandas, could really yield some stunning results. But other than that, they come beautifully finished inside, actually, with custom mahogany wood and about 1,200 square feet and 3 bedrooms and 2 baths per unit. So what's even crazier is that the owners would still listen to offers and negotiate even further. So this is a real solid deal on a real solid building in a great location. Now to end, while not necessarily my strong point, let's talk about some homes. This is one of my most interesting ones, really. Recent listing of mine is a beautiful finished home in a great lot in a private location, and the price point is just crazy. This 4-bed, 3-bath, 3,000 square foot home comes with a beautiful yard with fruit trees, a back patio area, and a walk-in closet to die for. Most people just are flabbergasted by it. So I don't think this one will last much longer, but I figured I might as well just, put it out there for you guys to check it out.
Yeah, of course, Carlo. And I'm curious, if someone was going to buy a house and they wanted to rent it out when they aren't there, is that a service that you guys would offer as well?
Yes, actually, one of my agents, he does mainly property management, so that is definitely something that we can do for you.
And then how available are people there to do work on houses, to do construction, if you wanted to subdivide, if you wanted to fix up a house, just overall labor?
Oh, yeah, no, it's very available. Really, like I said earlier, right now it's not, the most busy time, unfortunately, for building. So you actually have a lot of contractors who are good, who are, I wouldn't say they're doing nothing, but they're definitely, doing less than they're used to. So they're not at capacity and definitely handle more work.
Okay, perfect. Well, Carlo, we are laser focused on specific areas of Belize City. We know our starting price point. We have an idea of cost per meter. We have 3 specific examples, which are good enough even for my sister. Now, let me ask you an obvious question. How do we buy? Do we need to come in with all cash, whether that's from our checking account, home equity line of credit, or retirement funds? Or can we come in with a certain percentage down and get local financing from a bank or credit union?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I've dealt really with both cases, and either can work. Getting all your money down here would probably be the faster avenue, but I do have great connections with loan officers at all the major banks and credit unions, so finding financing here is definitely not an issue.
So if you have expats, are they allowed to get loans inside of Belize?
Yes, definitely. A lot of times what they would do is kind of like look at your maybe if you have a pension, that's one
Right.
of the main things that they look at. If not, that just have good funds coming in on a regular basis. But that's essentially it. And actually, there are very cool packages for expats that they can actually bring on a lot of stuff duty free, a lot of their belongings like cars and stuff like that.
And then primarily that would be for a house that they're going to live in or else live in part-time. It's not really for land that they're going to divide or commercial, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, in that case, yes. For that stuff, yes, it's more for living. But when it comes to commercial stuff, that's a bit different. But as long as you have the income stream, we can work that out. But a lot,
Right.
the thing is, you can get your own loan in the U.S. and bring it across. It's a bit more tricky, but again, that's where I just recommend that you get a very good lawyer, and I have some that I would recommend.
And off the top of your head, do you know what would be a typical down payment percentage-wise if the typical expat was going to buy a $250,000 house in Belize? Would they need to put down 40% or 30%, that kind of thing, kind of like as a general range?
For the bank?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, actually, for a foreigner, it may be a bit higher, but I know usually for locals, it could be 10 to 20%, and that's all you really need once you have the income coming in.
Right. So the big main thing is showing a good income that you can qualify for the loan to buy the property.
Yes, pretty much.
Okay, perfect, Carlo. Anyone who has ever owned real estate can tell you, you need to have a money exit strategy in place even before you buy. It's something what I like to call, where's the cheddar? You are buying the property to do what with it to make some money. So, Carlo, where's my cheddar?
Sure. Well, again, I think that's the value I bring to the table in that I'm not just going to sell you property and disappear. I come with all my connections, and you're welcome to all of them. So I provide not just real estate services, but I support them, I like to think. Whatever I can do to ensure your success, whatever knowledge and information I have that I can share, whatever wisdom and insight I can give, whatever connections I can help make, service providers that I can recommend, that's what I do. So when you work with Carlo Habet, you get an expert in all things Belize, and whether that's providing real estate services or helping you to realize that cheddar, that's what I'm here for. So you will know your money exit strategy before you decide on your real estate entry strategy.
Well, Carlo, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to share with us about Belize City real estate. We have heard about your journey, why you chose Belize, exact areas of Belize City to focus on, price points to look out for, specific examples good enough even for my sister, a money strategy to purchase, and then what we might do with it after the fact to make some cheddar. Unfortunately, it's time to say goodbye. But before we do, share with us easy ways to get a hold of you, any parting advice you might want to share, and then let's say goodbye.
Sure. Well, it's been my pleasure, Taylor. I'm sad to see it come to an end. But if you want to get a hold of me, all my info is on our webpage, which is at www.4realty.bz, or you can check out my Facebook page at facebook.com/4realty. You can also check out my listings there now, which is pretty cool. So you can check out all that stuff. I think there's like a little tab in the Facebook area that you can check out my listings too. So you can email me directly at carlo@4realty.bz, or call me at my U.S. number, which is 347-778-1175, or my Belizean number, which is 501-610-4186. Again, you can find all this info on our webpage, which is 4realty.bz. And my advice would be, take some time and check out Belize. It's an unbelievable place. You have to see to believe, and don't be shy or afraid to ask questions. I'd be happy to help any way I can. And there's actually a lot of cool brown info about Belize on my site if you take the time to check it out.
Absolutely fantastic, Carlo. I have really enjoyed this conversation straight from Belize City, Belize to our earbuds, and I hope we can catch up again in 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, definitely. I hope so too. Again, Taylor, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me so long to all our listeners, and I hope to hear from some of you guys. I hope to catch up again real soon. Thanks, and all the best.
I want to thank Carlo once again for his extremely knowledgeable take and on-the-ground insights from this up-and-coming commercial hub. I was excited to have Carlo on the call and break down a part of Belize no one ever talks about, and I can't wait to get him back on the show again soon with more specific Belize City real estate investments he believes you need to hear about right now. If you are listening to this podcast and want to grab Carlo's contact details, links on buying or selling Belize City real estate, or any other show notes, head on over to irelpodcast.com/22. Don't forget to check out Carlo's show notes page where you can listen on the site, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and then grab a word-for-word transcription of this episode to take and read via PDF. You will also have easy ways to get all the latest and greatest Belize real estate listings via email as placed by owners, agents, and developers completely free. If you happen to own Belize real estate, you have easy ways to create an account and list your real estate for sale or rent with us. Whether you have a gentleman's farm in the Cayo, a beachfront house in Placencia, or commercial office spaces in Belize City, like Carlo, I invite you to list it with us. Head on over to irelpodcast.com/22 to get started.
You have been listening to the IREL Podcast with Taylor White. Be sure to hit up irelpodcast.com for more. That's irelpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.